Do you want to know what the fallen are, little one? In a sense, they are angels, but not the angels your mom imagines she prays to. Brass trumpets picnicking in the clouds. In their true essence, they are great swirling engines of wing and blood, fiery eyes that peer around the corners between worlds. Dark, radiant things conjured from fresh battlefields. A Frankenstein's Valkyrie, forever crashing to Midgard. What grief demands their hate, what vast cannibal hunger.
Welcome to the Fallen Cycle Mythos Fiction Podcast. This universe is full of secrets, waiting for those brave or foolhardy enough to seek them out. Cycle 2, Party at the World's End. Take a mad ride past the event horizon of sanity, as Lilith and her band of miscreants transcend from escaped convicts to superstars of a different kind. They grapple with the intoxication of growing influence. This is the story of those fallen who walk amongst us in a universe where 2012 went a bit differently, and hints of the world that is to come. Discover more about the Fallen Cycle mythos, including comics, novels, setting lore, and an RPG currently in development at fallencycle.com. And for our discussion and actual play exploration of RPG system and setting, visit modernmythology.net. This podcast contains adult themes and may induce psychosis. And now on with the show.
Season 5, Chapter 9, Invisible Masters, 2012. Hey guys, Loki asked through the cracked door. Did someone order room service? Yes, Jesus said from within the room. Send them in. A young bellhop entered with an absurd spread of food and champagne on a cart, and then froze in place at the scene inside. What kind of savages was he dealing with? A flat-screen TV lay on its side against the wall for no apparent reason, playing a nature show. The sofa and love seat similarly upturned. Banging and moaning echoed from the bathroom. But there was sign of no one except a blissfully snoring Cody, now relocated to the floor. Hello? Dionysus peeked out from under the overturned sofa, like a turtle exploring outside its shell. The sound of Ariadne's giggling followed him. Are you sick? The bellhop asked. Oh no, I haven't been in a mental asylum in months. Clean bill of health. Here, let me get your tip. Dionysus started to emerge from his cave. Ariadne looked on from behind. They were both naked. No need, the bellhop said, backpedaling. He slammed the door behind him. All of them descended into hysterical laughter. Loki and Artemis stood in the hallway, like passengers on an elevator. There was a bang, and then some loud moaning. Loki tilted his head, listening. Amber, from the sound of it. She would probably have another orgasm in 4, 3, 2. This is just wrong, Artemis said. If you'd rather be inside. Artemis snorted. Soldiers never leave their post. She paused. Might as well call it in for getting bagged. Good luck with that. State and local cops are jammed, Loki said, grinning proudly. How? Hired one of those Indian call centers. They're hitting every line every few seconds with a phony push pole. That's gorgeous, Artemis said. How? Lilith likes to get things for free, but she seems to be good at supplying resources when they're needed. Frankly, the girl scares me. Oh, brave new war. You want in? I'm not already, Artemis asked. Babylon's ops posture is a synthesis of Anonymous, Mend, Al-Qaeda, CIA, Hamas, and the Grateful Dead. You need a minute on that? Yes. Good. If you said no, you were either a plant or an idiot. Al-Qaeda and the Grateful Dead, identity, purpose and movement. Anyone's in who wants in, simply by aligning and educating themselves. Loki cocked his head. Partly. No, wait. It's a movement with 1,000 centers. They see the broadcasts. They watch your little how-tos, Artemis said, trying to reason it out. Stole the last bit from Hamas. Not so far as setting up an alternate social infrastructure. It's more like, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, she said. The illusion of a movement becomes a movement. Got it in one. And anyone can join, essentially build their own self. They become the center of their own local franchise. Franchise. I like that, Loki said. You really know how to use that fancy crossbow you got there? Yeah? Always had a thing for bows. Been training ops my whole life, really. Military? Fuck no. I'm an artist. Dance, archery, martial arts, acrobatics and circus arts. Half Filipino, half Russian, in a rich white neighborhood after my father fell out of favor with some of his former business partners. Babysitters were probably Spetsnaz. So I had opportunity for extracurricular activities, I guess. Can you get more of those toys? Yeah, but they're not toys. He cleared his throat. This is the most I've talked in weeks. Yeah, Artemis said, thinking. D2 to D4. Loki grinned despite himself and felt a little thrill when it was returned. Better watch it, he thought, or some uptight gay men might try to revoke his member's card. Dionysus and Ariadne staggered into one of the bedrooms. They had torn window curtains wrapped around their shoulders, like capes. After running circles around the room several times, they fell into the bed and each other's arms. Ariadne stared up at the ceiling. Are you guys in some kind of cult? Fuck, I mean, I probably should have asked that before whatever happened in the bathroom, but... Dionysus smiled as he studied her face. There was something deeply familiar, but he couldn't find it in any particular feature. Not exactly, no. Cults, plural. What? She exclaimed. Never mind that, I was kidding. No, you weren't. I don't care if you're in a cult, if it's all like this, and not sewing together bodies, or cooking meth in the desert. More like rambling about Nietzsche in the bayou, he said. Whatever it is, it's great we met. I mean, all of us met. I got into theatre because of the energy, you know? How it is on stage, but it works off the audience, back and forth like breathing, she said. Sure, only performers get what you mean though, he said. You did theatre? A little. Local troops. Managed to get the lead in Orfeo. She paused, smiling back at him with those big eyes. Then she frowned. This is weird. What is? Tonight. Life. Everything. She nuzzled closer, before speaking again. You know Lilith thinks that we're all forgetful demigods? What? You don't think that you're actually... Well, like, I'm Ariadne now? I think Ariadne is a beautiful name, just like you... Don't even, Cheese Master, she said. I like Ariadne too, but don't be silly. How did you meet these people? And what happened to me earlier? God, it's a long one, he said reflexively. Ho ho, she said, laughing. But he didn't seem to get the joke. She put her hands about 5 inches apart. All right, the this-sized version then. The truth is, I don't know how to explain. I'll try. I long had questions no one seemed to share. Identity, meaning, existential shit, you know. Around 2002, Jesus and I heard about someone, a teacher who was part of a secret society. That mother hive brain thing I've heard you talk about? She asked. That came later, he said. I guess a lot can happen in 10 years. Yeah, all this started even earlier for me, like childhood. Strange experiences in the woods, an imaginary friend who turned out to be real, recurring dreams. I'll tell you more about that someday, he said. But not today, she said. No, not today. He shifted and thought for a moment. I felt I had to find someone that could help me figure it out. We got wind of him, Gabriel De Leon. How is also a long story and it couldn't matter less. But let's see, how to begin? And well, it was all downhill from there, Dionysus concluded with a chuckle, after he realized his story had gone on for longer than he'd intended. Gabriel became a sort of teacher to us for a time. Ariadne said, still staring up at the ceiling, a pillow clasped to her chest. I don't even know if you answered my questions. What seemed like, and very may well have been, hours later, Mary kissed Jesus' forehead softly and slipped out of bed. She hugged herself repeatedly. Everything felt renewed. She always wanted to feel like this, an alternate universe where it was spring and she was 11, where there were no rules and she could run, fall, and roll in fields if she wanted to. And it didn't matter if she got her dress dirty or scuffed her knee, and no bedtimes, and the ecstasy was pure and always free. Jesus had helped her find that place. The two of them had whiled away the night over bottles of Spanish wine and MDA. Jesus was nothing like she expected, in private, quiet and gentle, subdued. All the posturing, like the makeup, was some kind of armor against a world that had already made up its mind about being bigoted. It must have been like overacting on stage, in the hopes of reaching the back row. Opening the door a crack, she glanced down the hallway to see Dionysus and Ariadne asleep, curled around one another like two kittens. Her cell phone was in her clothes, which were in the bathroom. She started in that direction, but a pleading sound stopped her in her tracks. Lilith and Amber were still at it? Good God. She tiptoed by the supine couple on the bed and headed towards the hall. As she reached for the door, it shot open, seemingly of its own accord. She nearly screamed, clamping her hand over her mouth instead. Well, come on then, Loki said from behind the door. Hey, you're still out here, she observed, as she slipped out to stand beside him. Where else would I be? He continued checking both directions of the hallway, not making eye contact as he spoke. We wouldn't want to be caught by surprise now, would we? No, I suppose not. Who are you looking for? You never know. He finally turned towards her, though his eyes were barely visible through his tinted aviator glasses. You never know. She giggled, though he didn't respond with any facial gesture whatsoever. Where's Artemis? Sleeping. It's my shift. Do you sleep? She asked. He seemed to think about it for quite some time. Sure. When? Tuesdays usually, he said gruffly. Why do they call you Loki anyway? I'm very serious about my mischief, he said. I can see that. They fell silent as a man in a business suit stepped off the elevator. Loki leaned against the wall, one hand sliding toward his back, but the man just hurried past and disappeared into one of the maze-like turnoffs. So, why are you out here? He finally asked. I have to make a phone call. Tell my parents I'm not coming home. You know, probably for a couple years. You don't have a cell? There's a phone in the room, and another in the bathroom, I assume. Well, yeah, but I didn't want to disturb Jesus. She kind of slipped into a trance. And Lilith and Amber, God only knows, and I don't want to. He nodded his head. Amen, sister. All right, you can use mine. We need to go. Dionysus opened an eye to see Loki staring down at him through aviator shades. An unlit cigarette dangled from his mouth. We need to go, he repeated, nudging him with his boot. Huh? Dionysus managed to ask. Ariadne flailed. Tell them to call back. I'm sleeping. This is really happening. Wake up, Loki said. Dionysus slowly got to his feet with the torn curtain draped around him. He could only manage to get one eye open. I don't know how it happened, but they found us, Loki said. That got both of his eyes open. Who? The cops? We need to... No, Loki said. The fans. What? Dionysus said. You woke me up for that? See for yourself. Loki dragged Dionysus to the window and threw open the blinds, The riot at the concert had followed them through word of mouth, spawning an apocalyptic after-party in the parking lot. There were mattresses strewn about, with half-dressed college students passed out on them. One had "Slut Boy" written on his face in lipstick. A furry orgy was in progress, centered around a disreputable conversion van with a clowns and balloons mural painted on the side. "Fuck me, Teddy Ruxpin," cried a voice from within the wildly bucking van. "Oh God, you're right, this is bad," Dionysus said. Journal of Gabriel De Leon, December 2011. Everywhere I go, in every experience, I see life constantly on the verge of death. The intensity of it almost overflowing, overwhelming me precisely because everything is, from the moment of its creation, so close to its own annihilation. Life exists to the extent that it stands in stubborn and harsh contrast to its own non-existence. One who is alive, truly alive, experiences eros for life as the tension between being and becoming, a contrast standing against the darkness, the hollow eternity, not the light at the end of the process. Through this, we may discover our second birth, between the secret gravity of our end being ahead and behind us, and our constant attempt to create a beginning, an eternally present moment, right now. It is at first apparent that everything is dying, the undoing, the negation, resonates throughout everything. A Cerberus that barks in warning, do not enter, no one ever returns. Yet, in passing through the gates he guards, one is immediately overwhelmed by how alive everything is, challenging that pessimistic cry that had set a pall upon the world, all living beings screaming together, defiantly against the coming of the dawn. Should we choose life, accept it fully without doctoring, we must join into this chorus with all of our strength, become a part of the song rather than an individual standing outside, merely listening in rapt attention. For those who would cling to a static solution, whether it be a canon, manifesto, or the words of an orator or messiah, I would recommend they take Crowley's words to heart. O ye who dwell in the dark night of the soul, beware most of all the herald of the dawn. My first waking impression this morning was a hazy glance through frostbitten glass at an overturned trash can, the sound of a dog rummaging through the garbage, the gentle pattering of sleet on the roof. Doppler shift as a car turns on slick asphalt. Sentence fragments, thoughts bisected in a 3x3 set of window panes on the far wall. If you're really intent on a decent reproduction of the event, lie down and close your eyes. Imagine a chill sensation, a hazy image of a toe with overgrown toenails sticking out of the bed covers, and then a camera pan to the rusty trash can, outside. Not a dramatic opening, but it's all this day has given me. Third day of the 12th moon, 2012. None of these patterns bode well. Oh yes, to be sure, the number of panes in my window has control over what the day has in store. It's still dawn, turquoise twilight, and I'm all tangled up in the sheets. What I really want to know is, where is my coffee? When did 7:30 a.m. become an acceptable wake-up time? And where are all the lithe nymphs I was promised when I joined this God-forsaken, mystical order? They promise eternal love, light, and liberty. Instead, I get an empty apartment full of books and a pet spider monkey. It just goes to show, never believe what you read in books. Get out of bed with a wince, because the hardwood floors are about 4 degrees warmer than ice, and hunt for a pair of socks for what seems like an hour. This is the part of being an invisible master, which gets lost in the translation. Getting up to a freezing apartment and hunting for your socks as you wonder why this morning reminds you of the moon card and, metaphysically speaking, to menstrual blood. Menstruum was once believed to be the receptive agent in the birth process, and therefore of great alchemical import. A beginning to be sure, but for what? My mind jumps around. You have to keep yourself invisible, because otherwise, they'll realize you're still a primate just like them, and the whole game's off. Jesus was wise not to cast himself down from Herod's temple at Satan's request. Pity. But if you want to talk about irony, my mother named me Gabriel. It's a long story why exactly that's ironic in this context, but just trust me, all right? It is. I carefully slide open the drawer of the chest by my bed and review recent letters from potential recruits. Reports from agents in the field, updates from those in other divisions of the Order. I stop on a letter I received from one of these potentials. I read it once, and then again. I find myself absently running my finger up and down the side of the page, relishing the texture. Now I remember, he's the initiate who wound up in that asylum. I fold the letter thoughtfully and pocket it. The others, I replace in the drawer. Twilight has given way to a rosy dawn. The last sliver of the moon, visible through 3 panes of glass, is now all but gone. Soon that rosy dawn will turn golden. And thankfully, the dog has ceased his noisy rummaging. Out the apartment door with my hair still wet, down the block where I wait at the same stop every morning. Each day, I catch the 8:20 a.m. train with the same assortment of people. This morning is no exception. As you may have guessed, I am the type of person who catches every detail, but I rarely speak to strangers unless it is required for an assignment. Subjective investment in a situation mars your capacity for keen observation. There are 3 people in the 8:20 a.m. crew, besides myself. A wrinkly shell of a woman, wrapped in something coarse and thick, wool or burlap. A bubblegum popping brunette who always wears sunglasses, probably going to the liberal arts college at the end of the line. And a boy in his late teens. We smile as we board the train. I've been passing symbols their way for months, though they don't know it. I'm not just a professor of philosophy. I am a member of a lineage which stretches back into ancient history. Exactly which organization isn't important. We make up fronts all the time, just to keep new recruits guessing. It would seem, at first, that a spiritual organization is a real contradiction in terms. Certainly, all the base mammalian proclivities show themselves the moment we collect as a group, and territoriality and hierarchy will wheedle its way into even the most high-aimed society. We aren't so long out of the trees after all. Those loudest in proclaiming their spiritualism are the most suspect, and even the divestment of the material can merely become a form of popularity. So each order must be a veil. That makes none of this play acting any less serious. One does not act a part, one is the part. Don't let your reflection fool you. The Magus is more powerful than any god, and the most powerful amongst the legions of the damned is Maya, Lord of Illusion. It can get downright lonely, this life. As you go through your day, just remember there are masked ones. It may be that yonder beggar is a king. A king may choose his garments as he will. There is no certain test. The order affects the future of the world, not through demographics or tax cuts, but through interaction with people's internal lives. Dreams and symbols conveyed by nature herself. The downside is that you never really know what effect you've had. You are the causeless cause, dead to your aspirations as you learn to walk the hidden path. Our eyes are fixed on a horizon thousands, even tens of thousands, of years hence. As the Hierophant, I'm in charge of the young wayward fallen, who have yet to remember themselves. They begin as outsiders, orphans. Call them freaks if you must, who are wading through generations of recurrence. They keep a little bit of themselves when most souls are scraped clean in the great winnowing of Dumvati. These are something like the cuckoo, who slips into the nest of other birds to lay her own eggs. They hatch, undetected in a nest full of outsiders. From an early age, they know they don't belong, but not why. They usually set out young. I can rarely engage directly, but eventually I find them, or they find me. So you can imagine, college professor was a good cover. For millennia, all the Order had was time. Something is changing now. The planet's pulse hastens. The cycle turns. Eventually, you reach your destination, and you can give that special someone the push they need. I am invisible, hidden between the lines, but always in the back of your mind now. The train is rattling laboriously over a worn patch of track, which means the next stop is mine. These have all been answers to questions you don't yet have, but you will. Here's my stop now. See you on the other side.
You have been listening to the Fallen Cycle Mythos podcast. Keep subscribed to receive new episodes as they are released at fallencycle.com or on the podcasting service of your choice. Party at the World's End was written by James Curcio. Thanks to J.F. Stackhouse and Nate Samsel for collaborating on early drafts of this story. The soundtrack was produced by James Curcio, with special thanks to various creative collaborators for inspiration and soundtrack source from old sessions, including, in no particular order, Scott Landis, Sean Marsden, Jen E., Gaetan, Sarah and Rahul Iyer, Martine Della Ruffa, David Bessel, Ari, and Nate Samsel. Cut the Sky's Throat, an album selected from this feature's soundtrack, is free to stream and will be available on Bandcamp. Music by Lilith, Dionysus, Cody, Jesus, and Ariadne. A statement on the use of neural networks is available on our website for those curious about how we do and don't use these technologies. This podcast is Creative Commons 3.0, Attribution, Share and Share Alike, Non-Commercial Use.